When you think about the 75-year history of the National Basketball Association, there have definitely and inevitably been several weird occurrences to happen. But there is one occurrence, one game to be specific, that in my opinion stands out and therefore deserves to be labeled as the weirdest game in NBA history. Hey guys, it's Jackstown and welcome back to another video. So for today's video, we're going to be talking about one particular NBA game that was so strange, and the circumstances and what transpired in the game were just overall so weird that you just have to hear to believe. And yeah, real quick before we get into the video, if you love sports, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what kinds of videos like this you might want to see in the future. So without further ado, here is the weirdest game in NBA history. The date was February 5th, 2014. The Los Angeles Lakers were playing the Cleveland Cavaliers. That season, both teams were pretty bad, as the Lakers finished the year 27-55 and the Cavs finished 33-49, both far from playoff contention. The Lakers coming into the game had lost 7 straight games, while the Cavs had lost 5 straight, so both teams were also playing some particularly terrible basketball as of late. So on paper, this game looked like a normal, boring regular season game between two bottom-feeding teams that would quickly be forgotten. But little did anyone know that what would occur on this night would be worth talking about 7 years later. The Lakers in the 2013-14 season were decimated by injuries, as Kobe Bryant was still recovering from the torn Achilles he had suffered the season before. Also, coming into this game, the Lakers would be without Pau Gasol, who had an injured groin, Jordan Hill, who had a cervical injury, I don't really know what that means, Jody Meeks, who had a bad ankle, and Steve Nash, who for some reason was out due to a coach's decision, but I assume he was hurt and just wasn't listed on the injury report because Steve Nash was a good dude, and I don't see why Coach Mike D'Antoni could have him in the doghouse or anything. But besides the point, the Lakers only had 8 healthy players coming into this game. Why they didn't temporarily sign some players from their G League team, I don't know. Despite the injuries, the Lakers were actually winning by a pretty big margin in the first half, as they led by 19 in the first quarter and by as much as 22 at some point in the second quarter. Then, with a little over 2 minutes left in the first half, things started to turn weird. On a fast break drive to the rim, Nick Young, aka Swaggy P, twisted his knee and came up hobbling. He finished the half probably on pure adrenaline, but did not return in the second half. This left the Lakers with only 7 players for half number 2. This lack of players allowed Chris Kaman to have the entire bench to himself at one point and create a hilarious meme by lying down on it as a result. The third quarter was mostly normal and boring, but then things got even weirder in the fourth quarter. On another fast break in the first few minutes of the fourth quarter, Jordan Farmar hurt his calf after going up for a layup, and he wasn't able to return, which meant the Lakers were down to just 6 healthy players. Then, just over a minute later, Chris Kaman ran through an Anderson Varejao screen and committed a foul. No big deal, except for the fact that this was Kaman's 6th foul, meaning he was now fouled out. And this meant that the Lakers were down to just 5 healthy players. The Lakers now had to stick with the beautiful lineup of Kendall Marshall, Steve Blake, Wesley Johnson, Ryan Kelly, and Robert Sacre for the last 8+ minutes of the game. I think you guys might now know why the Lakers only won 27 games that year. Anyways, over the next 5 minutes, the Cavs made a little run and tried to cut into the Lakers' deficit, making things a little more interesting. But let's face it, nothing other than what's about to happen could make this game any more interesting. With about 3.5 minutes left in the game, CJ Miles drove to the paint and got fouled by Lakers center Robert Sacre. Normally a bench warmer, but on this night, not so much. The problem with this foul? Well, this was Sacre's 6th foul of the game. Oh no. So normally after committing your 6th foul, you can't continue playing, right? So what happens now? Well, I guess everyone was confused about what would happen next. Would the Lakers have to forfeit, or would they maybe have to force an injured player to play or something? Even Pau Gasol tweeted that he had no idea what would happen next. Well, now we gotta dive deep into the NBA rulebook to find a solution. And thankfully, the rulebook has an answer. It states that, quote, each team shall consist of 5 players. No team may be reduced to less than 5 players. If a player in the game receives his 6th personal foul and all substitutes have already been disqualified, said player shall remain in the game and shall be charged with a personal and team foul. A technical foul shall also be assessed against his team. All subsequent personal fouls, including offensive fouls, shall be treated similarly. All players who have 6 or more personal fouls and remain in the game shall be treated similarly. So basically, Sacre was allowed to stay in the game, but every foul he would commit from then on would also be a technical foul. Weird, right? Well, despite these strange circumstances, the Lakers somehow admirably hung on to win the game, and what resulted was some pretty average at best players having some standout performances. Steve Blake had an 11-point, 10 rebound, 15 assist triple double. Ryan Kelly, who, unless you're a hardcore Duke fan or Laker fan, you've never heard of, who averaged 6 points in 19 minutes per game in his career, had 26 points and played a game high 41 minutes. And unrelated to this, I saw in the box score for this game that Anthony Bennett had 14 points and 8 rebounds for the Cavs. Pretty impressive, back when there was still hope for him. Anyway, I'm not sure if this situation had ever happened before, and with today's rosters being expanded, with more players allowed to come off the bench and teams having closer ties to their G League teams, I'm not sure we'll ever see a game like this ever again. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, and again, subscribe if you love sports. Let me know in the comments what other weird games you've experienced as an NBA fan. And so yeah, guys, thanks again. That's going to do it for this video, and I'll talk to you guys later.